one he would rather marry, which was not a powerful argument in favour of marrying Miss Hunt, it was true, but then most men of his rank married more for position than for marked affection. He hugged his father at the door of the house, and hugged and kissed his mother again, and promised her that he would not forget a single one of the myriad messages he had memorized for delivery to Wilma, Countess of Sutton, his sister. He looked at his travelling carriage to ascertain that all his baggage had been loaded, and that his valet was up on the box beside John. Then he swung up into the saddle of the horse he had hired for the first stage of the journey back to London. He raised a hand in farewell to his parents, blew another kiss to his mother, and was on his way. It was always hard to say goodbye to loved ones. It was even harder knowing that his father might well be growing frailer. And yet, at the same time, his thoughts moved ahead with undeniable eagerness. At last he was on his way home. He had not seen Lizzie for over a week, and could hardly wait to be with her again. She lived, as she had for more than 11 years, in the house he had purchased 13 years ago as a swaggering young man about town for the mistresses he would employ down the years. He had only ever employed the one, though. His wild oats had all been sown very soon. He had gifts for Lizzie in his baggage, a feathered fan and a bottle of perfume, both of which he knew she would adore. He could never resist giving her gifts and watching her face light up with pleasure. If he had not offered to escort Miss Martin and the 2 schoolgirls to London, he knew he would have made a push to complete the journey in one long day. But he did not regret his offer. It was the sort of gallantry that would cost him very little, except perhaps 1 extra day on the road. However, he had decided that it was in his own best interests to hire a horse. Being inside the carriage with a schoolteacher and 2 young schoolgirls for the whole journey might be a strain even on his normally even-tempered nerves, not to mention theirs. He had been given the distinct impression 2 days ago that Miss Martin did not approve of him, though exactly what her objection to him was he had not fathomed. Women usually liked him, perhaps because he usually liked them. But Miss Martin had been looking rather sourly upon him even before he had asked to see the school, which had genuinely interested him. Carriage and horse descended the hill to the river, and then proceeded along beside it, before crossing the Pulteney Bridge and bowling onward in the direction of the school. Joseph's lips twitched at the memory of his meeting with Miss Martin. She was the quintessential spinster schoolteacher, clad plainly and serviceably in a blue-grey dress that covered her from neck to wrists to ankles, even though it was June. Her brown hair was dressed with ruthless severity in a knot at the back of her neck, though it had been looking somewhat dishevelled, it was true, as if she had just put in a hard day's work, which no doubt she had. She was neither particularly tall nor particularly thin, but her ramrod-straight posture had given the illusion of both. Her lips had been compressed when she was not speaking, her grey eyes keen with intelligence. It amused him to realize that this was the woman of whom Susanna had spoken so warmly as one of her dearest friends. The Viscountess was small, vivacious, and exquisitely lovely, and yet it was not impossible to imagine her teaching at that school. However dry and severe the headmistress had appeared when she was with him, she must be doing something right. The girls and teachers he had seen had all appeared happy enough, and there was a general atmosphere about the place that he had liked. It had not felt oppressive, as many schools did. His first impression had been that Miss Martin was surely old enough to be Susanna's mother, but he had revised that thought. She was quite possibly no older than he. 35 was a rottenly nasty age for a single man who was heir to a dukedom. The necessity of doing his duty and marrying and producing the next heir had been causing him some uneasiness, even before his recent interview with his father. Now it was something he could no longer ignore or procrastinate over. For years he had actively resisted all pressures of the matrimonial kind. For all his faults, which were doubtless legion, he did believe in monogamous relations.